Whether you've been blogging for a while or you're new to this and you're just kind of at the stage of picking your niche, it can be really scary when we see other big established sites in the same niche. I commonly get asked, should I be building a niche site or an authority site? And people who are doing one think suddenly that, oh, maybe they should have been doing the other. And one of the biggest reasons I see for this fear is because there's a fear about whether or not your creation, your website, has what it takes to compete with those that are already established. That's what we're going to talk about here in this video today. So what do you do when you see competition within your niche? Should you switch niches to something with less competition? Almost always the answer is going to be no. The reality is that no matter what niche you're into, it's going to look competitive at first look. The best thing that you can do is actually learn how to lean into your competitive advantage. We'll talk more about what competitive advantages you have in just a second, but first, there's something I do need to get off my chest. I really don't like the distinction that people make between niche sites and authority sites. The way that I see it is a niche site is an authority site that just hasn't grown up yet. Now you can make a niche site and keep it as a niche site forever. And really the biggest distinction I see between the two is a niche site focuses on a single or a much smaller aspect of a topic or an industry, right? Whereas an authority site has a tendency to branch out a bit more. But the bigger distinction that I see is in the monetization. With a lot of niche sites, people have the mindset of passive income. We're going to do ads, we're going to do affiliate marketing, and we're going to keep it as passive as possible. I've seen sites though in a very specific niche that built up massive authority in their small niche and just cranked up the monetization, created an info product, a physical product, started e-commerce, and started actually making some really, really good money from the traffic that they were getting. And the only difference between the two sites was the monetization. So there's not actually a very firm definition or distinction between what's a niche site and what's an authority site, which is why that distinction just makes absolutely no sense to me. So I'm not going to use them anymore. If you want to build an authority site, build a niche site. If you want to build a niche site, build a niche site. Either way, we want to start small, we want to start specific and build real topical authority. And that's going to give us the flexibility to expand to the broader topic and or to be able to really monetize well. And we can keep it passive if we want to, or we can make some really good money from digital products and such. Now, there are a couple things to keep in mind when you're on the earlier side of things, and this could be the first couple of years. I'm not talking about just total beginners. And the first thing is try to keep your branding generic enough. I know I said niche down, right? But try to keep your branding generic enough that if you were to expand in the topic, it wouldn't hurt the brand. If you pick a really specific domain name, chances are you're gonna wanna change the domain name in the future if you ever wanna branch out into the broader niche. However, if you pick something that's a little bit more generic within your niche or a name that's a little bit more of just a brand and less exact match, you're gonna be able to expand and sort of take the site whatever direction you want to without having to change the branding in the future. So two things to remember. Branded or kind of generic topical name for your website, but focus on treating it like a really specific niche site in the very beginning. There's going to be a lot of opportunity to expand, again, both the topic and the monetization later once you've built up some real authority. Speaking of authority, you don't have to be a Fortune 500 company to have real authority within a niche. In fact, all of the big websites you've seen started out at one point as a small website. But how do you, as the new guy, compete with the big companies? This is actually a common question that people have, and it's not just about websites. It's about business in general. How does anybody ever compete with a big company? Well, it wasn't that long ago that if you wanted computer stuff, you went to IBM. Nowadays, most of you have probably never heard of IBM. IBM's still a big company, but so many other companies have grown up in the computer industry, creating hardware and software and all sorts of things. And how did they do that? Most of them started out in a niche, something specific. Think about Google. Google was literally just a way to search the internet. And nowadays, Google is one of the most valuable companies in the world. Think about Amazon. How did Amazon ever succeed in an industry where that was, dominated, totally dominated by local stores like Walmart? And think about where they first started. They just sold books. Why would you buy books on the internet? Today, that seems like an obvious question, but 20 years ago, it wasn't so obvious. The point is they all started out in a niche. And then they were able to grow and expand from there, exactly like what I'm telling you to do. Now, with your website, Google probably does see those big established sites as very trustworthy, very authoritative. But here's the problem, and where you have a huge competitive advantage. The bigger the brand, the more they have to try to appeal to everybody. And they have to create content that is applicable to everybody. So what do they end up creating? Content that's pretty generic and kind of bland. You, as an independent creator, as somebody who is starting up, right? You can pick your niche, you can take a stance on things, and you can dive in and create content that literally is only applicable to a small group of people. Content that nobody else is going to create because it seems like too small of a group. And you can become the authority for them. And it's a great place to start. Let me show you an example. I just went to webmd.com and I just went to their homepage to see what articles were showing up as recent and featured. And I found this one right at the very beginning, how to beat carb cravings. And when I Googled, how to stop craving carbs, this was the number 3 ranking article. Why? Because it's WebMD. Of course it's gonna rank well, okay? They have a lot of authority. But when I go look at the article, each one of the different reasons for why we crave carbs, look at how little information there is. Or I guess this is how to beat it, right? So how to beat carb cravings: keep your brain busy, eat mindfully, go for the right kind of carbs. I mean, these are good answers. I'm sure they're right. But how helpful is this? Be active. Great. Okay. Yeah. All right. Every time I'm craving carbs, I'll just go for a run. What if that doesn't work for me right now? What if I'm dressed for work and if I go for a run, I'm going to start sweating? It's just not that helpful. If you gave me more specific examples, more detailed answers, better advice, I could actually make good use of this. But the reality is they just have to stay pretty generic and pretty vanilla because they have to be able to cater to this huge audience. When you're a big company or when you're a big successful website and things start to change, it becomes really hard to pivot. This is issue number 2 with the big companies and where you have another competitive advantage. Not only can you focus on very niche specific topics and give really good helpful advice, but also as things change, like, AI and the Google algorithm, you can make changes that these guys aren't gonna make. You think WebMD is gonna be in a really good position and know exactly what to do to take advantage of video and social media in a way that an independent creator could? You as an independent creator, believe it or not, you think they have all the money in the world, but the reality is they also have processes and systems and bureaucracy that you don't have. And you have a huge opportunity now to pivot on a dime whenever you need to do that. Take advantage of that competitive advantage. Don't worry about building an authority site or a niche site. Worry about creating awesome content, and when things start to change, you're in a great position to start making those shifts. The next competitive advantage that you have is by not being a major, well-known website, you're also not in the public eye, getting a lot of scrutiny. Sure, you might get some comments from someone who disagrees with what you said, but you're not going to be making headlines on CNN. And because of that, you can take a stance on different issues. You can create content that goes further than what WebMD or any other major brand within your space is going to be able to do. Because if they say something wrong and they offend somebody, or they give a piece of advice that doesn't work well for somebody, they're a major target for lawsuits. They're a major target for ridicule online. Whereas as a small creator with a fairly small site, you're just not a target. The fourth thing is that a lot of people are more inclined to trust a person than kind of a faceless organization. I don't know who wrote this article, and I don't really even know what their credentials are, how credible they are. It says it was medically reviewed. Okay. But guess what? I've seen a lot of doctors that I don't particularly like or trust that well. But with the power of the internet, with social media, with video, and as you niche down and focus on building authority in something specific, you can become actually more trustworthy to a lot of individuals than WebMD is going to be. Sure, WebMD is going to win a whole lot of Google rankings, but when their content isn't helpful and people continue scrolling, and then they find your content ranking just below WebMD's, your content's going to be the content that they end up trusting. And that means that your brand is the brand that they go to for that kind of information, and in the future, for product recommendations, for info products. And the other cool thing is that Since you're not a major bureaucratic organization with 100 employees you have to pay, you can make a lot of money for yourself with just a fraction of the traffic of what the big websites need in order to be able to make a profit. So don't worry about the competition so much. Don't worry about, do I need a niche site and an authority site? Don't worry about if your niche is the right one, because you do see some competition in your space. Just move forward. Keep creating amazing content and take advantage of these competitive advantages that you have as a new independent creator without all the baggage of being a big website. Thanks for watching. I hope you found that enlightening. If you did, well, frankly, that's the kind of content that we create here on Income School. Our goal is to help you to be the most successful content creator that you can be. And if that's what you want too, then I recommend you check out some of the other videos we have here on this channel. Maybe even subscribe. And we'll see you in our next video.